Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pro Football Historian Channel. I'm your host, Flynn Given, and today we'll be discussing, the Week 4 games and recapping what happened in each one of them. We'll start off with the Thursday night game between Miami and Cincinnati. Obviously, this game has been talked about for different reasons other than actually what happened on the field in terms of the game. But obviously, the Tua gets hurt in this game. It was a relatively close game. Most of the time it was a 1 point kind of game or a 2 point game. You know, so it's very competitive. Obviously, two gets hurt and they put Bridgewater. I thought he played okay. Ultimately, the drives that he played, they really didn't. They only scored 3 or so points. Or excuse me, they scored a touchdown, and then for the second half they only scored three. And obviously, an interception late, which miscommunication with him and Gesicki. I don't know. Again, whose fault it really was. You know, looked like it could have been near and pass, but not totally sure. So I can't blame. I'm not going to put blame on one guy there. For the Bengals, they really couldn't run the ball. They did. Have 30 attempts in total. Um, and then they had some big explosive plays, which is what they kind of did last year. 59-yard touchdown to T. Higgins, which he beat Xavier Howard, who was pretty much banged up. That's really sum up this game. I know we kind of talked about this before in the previous video, but just wanted to go over it again, just in case. And then this is the London game. It's competitive pretty much throughout, though I thought the Vikings were, I don't know if I would say they were the better team. They definitely played better and definitely looked better. And, I know there's been injuries on the Saints, so they're not at full strength. But Vikings had multiple draws, multiple opportunities to end this. And it comes down to that 61-yard field goal, whatever it was, and hits double doinks, whatever you want to call it, hits the upright, the left upright, and then bounces down the crossbar or whatever, and they don't make it. So Saints fall 1-3. They just signed Chris Harris. So I know that might help some of the issues they had when they traded Gardner Johnson, but they had more issues than just that, obviously. And Dolan, he played fine. He could have actually had a couple of interceptions that were dropped, but good for the Vikings. They were leading the division because of the tiebreaker with the Packers, and they're 3-1. So they're in good shape. Saints are not really in good shape. Also, the Panthers as well. Another 1-3 football team. Atlanta and Tampa Bay are playing each other, so they don't win. They're going to be pretty much in last place. I mean, they pretty much are in last place right now, and so they're climbing back. And we'll discuss one of their divisional teams in Atlanta, who hosted Cleveland. Both teams really couldn't pass the ball too much. The Brissett was all right. Mariota did not play well, but no passing touchdown from either quarterback, and the run game really, really did well. And Caleb Huntley had some plays here. Cordell Patterson, who just got on injured reserve. Algier had a nice game, 42-yard run. And then Nick Chubb obviously had a good game, and Kareem Hunt was pretty good. So it came down to, the better coach team found a way to defeat a team that was way more talented. It's a bad loss for Cleveland because you could say, oh, they win this game, they have the Jets game, falls their way at the end. If they just make one play, then they're an undefeated team in a division where no one has more than 2 wins. But now they're, in the mix. They're pretty much tied, with Cincinnati and Baltimore in that division, at least record-wise. We'll move on. Atlanta plays Tampa Bay, so we'll see how that goes. Obviously, they're going to be the underdogs in that game. So Bills and Baltimore, obviously looks like a competitive game. Ultimately, Baltimore played way better than the Bills. Up 20-3 at half. and then they don't do anything until their last offensive drive, Baltimore, in which they go down the field, and they obviously have a fourth down. They go for it, and it's intercepted, and then the Bills go down the field, kick a 21-yard field goal. And then Baltimore, I will say Buffalo, it was Josh Allen's show in the second half, played really well. Overall, the game wasn't great. They did struggle, but him with his legs and his arm was enough to squeak out this game. Baltimore still having issues running the ball. It wasn't as bad as before in terms of just running the ball with the actual running backs, but still wasn't great. They didn't have any runs over 20 yards for any of their players. And Lamar statistically didn't have a great game. Passing the ball, still had some nice plays, but those are tough. And they come out in the second half and they play pretty good. Pretty good coaches over there. There's pretty good coaches on Baltimore as well. I guess we can go into the fourth down thing. Well, I don't mind it. Not the thing I would have done, but I don't really question it. Obviously, throwing the interception doesn't help. But even if they don't, and say at the 2 yard line, Buffalo gets out of that. They did drive down the field and got it within the 10 yard line, within the 5 even, pretty much. So, not saying it would have happened if they started at the 2 or 3, but and obviously we're looking back after the fact, but like I don't know, Baltimore had their shot no matter either way, and it didn't look like Baltimore was gonna stop them. And Baltimore offense, it would have been nice to got at least some kind of points, but they didn't do anything in the second half. So you can't have games where you just don't score any points. So obviously collapses, but they're a team that doesn't run the ball very well. Traditional running plays or traditional running game. It's more the quarterback with the rushing yards. So they can't close games out that way. And then defense isn't that great. They play better this game, but this is the reason for the collapse. I want to put it all on the defense. If they could just run the ball a little better, get some points. Because right now they're probably just better off just Lamar throwing, even if they're up a couple scores. They could be 4-0, but they're 2-2. Buffalo could be 4-0, they're 3-1. So just how it is. Moving on, Dallas Commanders. Not much to say for the Commander side. They just couldn't do much. They did have some big runs, but I feel like most of them were late. And, Wentz didn't play well. Again, he's getting pressured a lot, so I don't put a lot on him. But they should have some more success in the passing game, and really hasn't shown the last 2 weeks. And these are defenses that can definitely pressure the quarterback. So, it's not surprising or anything. And then Dallas, Cooper Rush played fairly well. It's basically just the game manager, and they're staying with the run. Didn't really do much in the running game. And, he did enough in the passing game. A couple big 30-yard pass plays, if not more. And that was the difference. There's no controversy like people were making it out. He's a backup quarterback. He might have proven that he's better than, some of the guys that are backups on some teams that have been playing. I don't want to put names exactly, but you could say he was a top 60 quarterback going in the year. Maybe he's in the top 50, maybe even 40, probably more just the top 45-ish area. But, he's taking care of the ball and he's playing well, and the team's playing well around him. And, they haven't played a great team. Like other than Cincinnati, that's the most impressive one. That was the first one they won. They got, the field goal at the end and won it. Besides that, beat Washington, beat the Giants. I know people were saying, "Oh, the NFC East is much better this year." I don't. They're beating each other and they're playing some AFC South team, which obviously that division isn't the greatest either. So I don't think it's much better than last year. So yeah, I mean the quarterback play might be on paper should be better, but that really hasn't turned out to be for some cases like Washington. Moving on. This is the biggest one of the biggest scoring games in NFL history. It's up there. Another game Jared Goff puts over 45 points, or 45 or more. But this one he loses. I know he had the Kansas City one where he won. I think they had 51 in that game. But obviously the defensive touchdown there. Either way, Detroit, doing a lot of great things on the offense, and defensively they're historically bad, you can say. At least for the quarter of the season. I don't think they have much. It's just the players. I mean, even the scheme. The scheme has proven to work with other teams like the Saints. They just don't have the players, and I don't mind the draft picks they've had, but they don't have enough superstars on defense and offensively. Um, like they'll get Jameson Williams eventually. Even Jared Goff doesn't have the greatest weapons, but he's playing well. Had the pick late. And then Seattle, Geno Smith played well. The running game was great. They really did whatever they wanted. Like there wasn't much. Like the Detroit didn't do much to stop the Seahawks for pretty much the whole game. James Smith came out hot. I thought the second half wasn't as good, but the running game then picked it up, so like it didn't really matter. So Seattle 2-2. I don't know if they're going to get much more wins, but they're doing better than probably people expected. And for Detroit, they're 1-3. Like they're better. They played better than I thought. At least especially offensively. Defensively, they're definitely worse than I expected. And the record's not surprising. Maybe for some people, this team has been getting hyped, but like I think it's a little early to put this team in this 7-win range. We'll see. The whole season still to play, but I think just teams like the Jets or I think other teams, the Jags that had bad record last year, are just better teams with players and even you can say scheme, better coaches maybe even too. I just don't think they're at that point. They might get there, this year, but I think it's probably more next year. But again, offense playing well, so that's interesting. If this keeps going, like what they're going to do with Goff. Moving on, Chargers, Texans. I mean, the Chargers dominated the football game for the most part. The second half, you had the Texans going down the field and a big run. I'm pretty sure the next drive, 75-yarder. Sorry, 75-yard was the beginning of the game, the second quarter. But then they had some couple drives, and then there was I think it was a kickoff or punt. It might have been a punt where DeAndre Carter fumbles. And so that gave them a short field. They only got a field goal on that drive, I believe. And then the Chargers go down the field and they score to close the game. So this could have been really good, really good game for the Chargers overall. But now that the Texans get in there and fight back. Davis Mills, the turnovers are the big problem. I thought overall though it was fine. As far as David Pierce was the only one who got a carry. They were down big, so I'm not surprised. They only ran it 14 times, but this is the spot you could attack the Chargers. So this was a much closer game. I was expecting them running the ball more, and it probably would have helped them, maybe pull off this victory like they did last year against this team. Pierce couldn't, yardage really is the big run, but still overall impressive game. Um, some of it was late, but the big run obviously helped that average. And then there was a big Nico Collins play, but otherwise, that was the game. It was pretty much Chargers came out hot and they didn't really cool off. They just had some mistakes and just allowed the Texans to get back in. And the Texans had long drives as well. This game was Derrick Henry's show again. against the Colts, and they gave him the ball in the receiving game a little bit. 33 yards receiving, 114 on the ground. No play more than 22 yards from Henry, but still some those runs. He broke a couple tackles on them. For the Colts, it's kind of the same thing. Like they get the ball to the tight end fairly well in this game, especially to Mo Alley Cox. Even Jelani Woods is getting involved. He had only one catch for 33 yards. But besides that, the receivers are just not at that stage where they can, like I thought Paris Campbell would be used in a better role, but maybe they don't have the quarterback to utilize him, in that way, the deep threat. So maybe they're throwing screens and stuff to him. And then you have Alec, I think it's Alec, could be Alex, but Pierce from Cincinnati. He's a rookie, so not expecting so much, but he did have a big play, 44 yards. Just Matt Ryan, it's really the pressure. It's offensive line combination with there's no real threat of Matt Ryan throwing it deep, and just allows teams to try to focus on the run, and they'll give up a few plays, but 17 points, allowing just that, you're going to win a lot of games, and that's pretty much what happened. The Colts got shut out in week 2. Scored, I think, 20 against the Chiefs last week. And I think the other game was another 20, whoever the tie against the Texans. So they haven't exploded in any of these games on either side of the ball, really. Defensively, I think it will get better, with some of the guys coming back, getting healthy. But, Taylor's hurt, so that's going to hurt. They're playing Thursday, so short turnaround against team, they got a fighting shot against. Moving on, Bears and Giants. Just same story with the Bears. Like there's some bigger plays in the passing game. 56-yard to Mooney finally got him involved deep. But other than that, it's been Herbert on offense and not much else. Only completing 50% of his passes this game. Some it's on him, some it's the line. It's hard to say. Like it's just not working. I know it's a new scheme, but they just don't seem to trust him, and like I don't totally blame him, but often the line isn't great either, and the weapons isn't great either. So it's a cold combination. It's just hard to evaluate the entire offense, really. Now with the Giants, it was Saquon again, getting him involved a lot and rely on him. Obviously, Daniel Jones got hurt later in the game. Tyrod Taylor came in. He was not good. He got hurt too. And then they went to some Wildcat to close the game out. And then I think Velus Jones was the guy who fumbled. I'll just double check. Pretty sure it was him. Yeah, it was Velus Jones on the punt return then. And that really pretty much sealed the game. And the Giants come out 3-1. I don't really view them much better than last year. They'll play the Packers in London. It's going to be a good test for them because the Packers are definitely more talented. But, we'll preview the Packers soon. They got some. It's more on the coaching side with them. They're and their offense is still getting in a group. But that's the Packers. We'll focus on this game. But again, Giants offensively, they know what they are and they play to it, and they're getting these wins, which is good for them, the confidence and all that. I really like how the Giants are looking and what they're trying to do. I don't know if they're going to get even over 7 wins, but it's a good start to the season. Getting some wins against some teams you probably, you could beat, and they have for the most part. And they got some more games they have chances, get some wins as well. And I think Daniel Jones looks fine. Stats don't look great, but Bears defense is better than people expected or think. And again, they just relied on Saquon to make some plays, and how consistently they can keep doing that. I mean, he looks really good. So they're going to keep doing it till either he gets hurt or the team figures out to shut it down. Now, this game, the weather definitely affected it. It affected other games that we even talked about, like Baltimore's game. But this one, it's really just came down fast start to the Jags, pick six, and then it was just the 5 turnovers by Trevor Lawrence, 4 fumbles, bad pocket presence on some of them, some of the ball just slipping out. Especially the fumble where he just scrambled, no one touched him, he fumbles. That was the big killer. He could have got points on that drive. Other than that, I thought Jags could have, had made this even closer game. Obviously, it's a touchdown late, 7 minutes left. You know, again, the Eagles wasn't like they were playing prevent, but it didn't they didn't care that much about it, and then they got to an 8-point game, and they almost ultimately finished the game out. We mostly just sack and fumbles, but again, Eagles are definitely a really good team, and the Jags, I don't really take much like bad things away from this game. Other Lawrence just needs to play better and take care of the ball better. They could win this game if he did that. Ultimately, he didn't, and they lose their second game of the year. Now the Jags and the Jets and the Steelers. Not a whole lot to say. The Jets definitely look better, which I didn't think they're going to look so much better than the Steelers. Ultimately, obviously, the score doesn't look like that, but they came out. They looked way better, and then they did some dumb things. They had the interception Zach Wilson threw someone early, which wasn't that great. Then that gives them points. I think a field goal. And they also have another the Hail Mary before the half where Carl Lawson gets a penalty, gives them a field goal on that drive before the half. And Zach Wilson, again, this isn't really his fault. The second interception or goes off whoever's hands, or it might have been tight end, whatever, goes right off the hands and goes right into Micah Fitzpatrick. And he returns it down inside like the 5, whatever. And then they get more points on, I think that was the Kenny Pickett rushing touchdown. Ultimately, Pickett threw some interception, Trubisky threw an interception. So one was a Hail Mary, though. So again, for Pickett, so that's not a big deal. But these mistakes for both teams really hurt them. Zach Wilson, though, especially the last few drives, was really, really good. And I've always been high on Zach Wilson more than most. Stat line wasn't great, but then they can build off this. And, I think it's a promising future for this team. And just, I don't know how many more wins they'll get. They're a team that could get 6, 7, maybe 8. Probably not, though. But they got a hard stretch. And then it starts to get easier down the stretch. But for the Steelers, it's going to be Kenny Pickett is going to be their future for you would think the whole season unless it gets hurt or something. But no, there's not a lot to say. Obviously, I think there's been news like, I don't know, they're making Pickens the number 1 or number 2 receiver, but I think they're going to give him more chances. Claypool with 0 catches in this game. Obviously, one went off his hands for a pick, even though I don't put that all on him as someone Pickett. Either way. Moving on. This is the ugly game. Cardinals didn't come out very well. I know they had some 4th down mistakes, and Panthers stopped them. You can say on some of them. But after that, Panthers offense is, again, not good. Baker completed a little bit more passes than the usual weeks, but not for a lot of yards. 2 interceptions, a lot of bad passes. McCaffrey led the team in receiving yards and catches. Just shows you this. I don't want to repeat every week, but they had problems getting to their DJ Moore or the playmakers. This week, yeah, you could say they had the most catches, but it's still not enough to those guys. And then, at least on an average basis, an average week, McCaffrey not much. They had no running game really to speak of, and no big plays. They can't do anything really, offensively and defensively. I think they're average to above average. Kept them in the game for the most part. One was a defensive touchdown in the game early on, interception return in the second quarter. So they only scored 3 field goals. Sorry, well, a field goal and then a touchdown and missed extra point then. So that was all the points the Panthers had the entire game. The Cardinals just kind of just slugged it out and found a way to win this game, and now they're headed to Philadelphia, and we'll see where the Panthers are. I'm trying to think they play. I think it's the 49ers they play. So we'll look into that game later in the week. In this game, New England, Green Bay, I think two things. Green Bay offense really struggled early on. I think I don't want to put on Rodgers or pick six. I'll put it on him. It's bad late and behind. Just bad play in general. The timing was even worse. Right at the end of the half, but he played really, really good. Rodgers at the second half. They ran the ball really well. Almost 200 yards. Christian Watson had a touchdown run, 15 yards. Lazard, a big 3rd and 10 play. That got them going. That led to a Tunyon 20-yard touchdown. Bailey Zappi, Hoyer obviously got hurt on a sack. Gary hit him. And then Zappi came in, played fairly well. They didn't ask much of him. I say early on he had a couple chances to hit some guys for first downs or at least close to the sticks. And he just underthrew it or whatever. Besides that, he played fairly well. And he had a chance. Obviously, this game came down to the end. There was a touchdown drop, if you want to say, or a late drop where Dobbs hits the ground and loses it. So the stats could have been better for the Packers. They had those chances. They had the fumble in the second play of the game, second offensive play of the game by Dobbs. But they'll start clicking eventually. Like when you have an older quarterback with rookie receivers that, for Dobbs, he's a 4th round pick. He was better than that. It was just, some of his, I guess you could say pro day or not even pro day, but even the All-Star game, like he just was hurt and didn't look great, and that probably made his stock drop. And Christian Watson, he's just a raw player who missed some time also in week 3 and as well as in training camp. So those guys will all start clicking eventually. You would hope this year. I think it's going to take about a month, one more month maybe, and they should be all good on that side of the ball. And, just think that this year Rodgers more turnovers than last year. In these 4 games, he's more than the entire season. And then on top of that, the team has turned it over twice every week. I think last year there were probably around 11 turnovers, is my guess. So it's just strange. Maybe it's just the receiver. It's just a lot of things are just happening with the Packers. I think obviously Rodgers has a lot before and during the play to figure out, but then he has to also trust these guys, and it's affecting the entire offense. And maybe they found something in the second half, which they can move forward with. They go to London, play the Giants. New England, though, struggled against the run. I kind of expected that. I kind of talked about that. They did pretty good in the run game on offense. And I think that's just the Packers, some reason, staying too high show. I don't really understand. They knew going into the game that Patriots were going to run it. So, and then with the quarterback injury, why they didn't make it force the Patriots to try to throw it. Really don't understand it, but I think they'll adjust going into this week against the Giants. We'll see. That's all I got for this game, pretty much. Other than maybe New England did have a try in overtime on their drive, short field, and 3-and-out. Again, good game from both. Well, it's a good win for the Packers. At least get the win at home. 15 straight wins at home now, I believe. And it was a close game. New England, respectable 1-3 in every game. They had a shot to win. This game, Denver's offense a little bit better than normal. Obviously, they lose Javonte Williams for the year, which kind of stinks. They just signed Latavius Murray off the Saints practice squad, who scored a touchdown in that game in London. But offense did play better, but defensively, and then also the Melvin Gordon fumble return was the difference for the Raiders. And then the Raiders also, the run game came alive against Denver. Some reason Jacobs does well against Denver. I think that's mostly due to the front is actually not as good as people think. And they expose a weakness and maybe even the scheme stopping the run. And then, the guy Adams involved again. But he definitely relied on the run, and it worked well. Didn't ask much from Carr. And, defensive touchdown and playing well, running the ball is pretty much the difference in why they won this game. We got 2 more games to go. We got Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Not a lot to say here. Tampa Bay's offense looked a little bit better than it has. They got some guys back, but that could be just because Kansas City was up so much. They were okay with some of the, the longer drives. And then Kansas City really didn't get stopped much. And again, who knows if it was a hurricane or any of that affected the Bucs, but defense didn't really have much answers. Mahomes' interception was late, kind of bad decision, but it ultimately didn't affect them much. And they ran the ball all right against the Bucs. They were on the field a ton on short drives and just really had no resistance. And the Chiefs could have scored more. They had a Clyde Edwards-Helaire drop. So on a 4th down and 1. And they had other chances to score more. The score is a little bit misleading. Chiefs kind of dominated this game. And then this game, 49ers dominated. The Rams, again, couldn't protect the quarterback. Similar to the Bills game. Couldn't really get the ball to anyone but Kupp. Obviously, Higsby had 10 catches. But the protection and the turnover at the end, the pick six. And then they had a hard time slowing down the run game for the 49ers and some of the shorter passes. And for some reason, on a 3rd and long, why the Rams played so far back on the touchdown to Deebo Samuel, even before the play, I assumed it's a 3rd and long. They really going to trust Garoppolo. They're going to throw a screen to probably Deebo Samuel. And what do? They throw a screen to him. Breaks the first guy and then eventually breaks the tackle from Rams, and he goes all the way. And then they had a few other 3rd and longs. And eventually, we can't go back to Deebo Samuel. They did it, I think, the next time again to Samuel and didn't do as well. And then another 3rd and long later, they eventually they hit Ayuk for a decent play, which I think that was a play Ramsey had to sneak under a lineman and tackle him. But so they had trouble with those kind of plays. Early on, they got the lead, and these Rams couldn't hold up, couldn't compete. And it's another loss against 49ers. And not really that great. It wasn't even that close. They had their chances. Even Robbie Gold missed a field goal he probably should have made. Rams aren't done, but they're definitely not as good as last year. They don't have depth. They never really had great depth anyway, but I think the injuries and no Van Jefferson, it just really hurts his offense right now. And 49ers are a great team to expose to expose the weaknesses of the Rams and He did exactly that. Now Rams go to Dallas. See how the game goes, and 49ers play the Panthers. So both teams have winnable games. Rams a little bit tougher, I think, but they're both in an okay spot. Get the Cardinals going against the Eagles, and they're 2-2, and the Rams already beat the Cardinals, and the Seahawks are 2-2, and they already lost to the 49ers. So both these teams are in fine spots, but they're gonna have to start, get on some win streaks for long, win a bunch of games. They want anything more than a division title or a playoff spot. So that's everything from week number 4. I'll preview week 5, maybe around Saturday or so. So I really appreciate you listening to the last 35 minutes of me talking here. And I'll see you guys later.